Imagine a gritty, rough coal mining region back in the early 20th century. Picture a place where the daily grind is so dangerous, so totally exhausting, that the local pubs are just overflowing every single night. Fights, gambling, swearing, it's just the background noise of everyday life. But then, something literally unexplainable happens. In just a matter of months, 100,000 people in this region completely changed their lives. I mean, the transformation is so radical that local pubs literally go out of business. But here's the most staggering statistic of all, and this blew my mind. The number of weekly court cases in this region plummeted from 700 down to just 2. It even got to the point where the miners stopped swearing so completely that the pit ponies in the coal mines, who were used to being yelled at with curses, well, they actually stopped understanding their commands. This isn't fiction, guys. This is the historical record of the 1904 Welsh revival. And the craziest part? It all started with one young man and a radically different understanding of what it actually means to wait.
When people later asked the 26-year-old leader of that initial tiny 17-person gathering, a guy named Evan Roberts, how such a massive historical shift happened, he didn't credit some brilliant marketing campaign or a clever strategy. He simply said this: "I have built the altar and laid the wood in order, and I have prepared the offering. I have only to wait for the fire." Notice the core theme he establishes right from the jump here. His use of the word wait isn't passive. It's not sitting around twiddling your thumbs. It's an intense, active preparation.
Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into active waiting, preparing for the rain, and we'll look at how we can transform the frustrating, deeply uncertain periods of our lives into times of powerful preparation. Let's get right into it.
To really wrap our heads around this concept of active preparation, we have to look at the very DNA of Christianity itself. It's inherently a faith anchored in seasons of waiting. The whole thing is built entirely around anticipation. Think about Advent for a second. That's a liturgical season dedicated entirely to waiting for the birth of Christ. Or think about the period leading up to Easter, particularly Good Friday to Easter Sunday, where believers historically wait for the resurrection. The tradition is fundamentally wired to embrace this tension of waiting for a major event to arrive.
But there is a third massive period of waiting, and it's rooted in a very specific historical moment, the Ascension. According to the book of Acts, Jesus gathers his disciples 40 days after his resurrection, and then he ascends into the clouds. Right after he leaves, angels appear to the bewildered disciples and give them a huge promise. They tell them he will return in the exact same way they just saw him leave.
And you can literally see the result of this anticipation today. If you look at the Mount of Olives in Jerusalem right now, the exact geographic location where the ascension supposedly took place, you'll notice something striking. It is absolutely blanketed in graves, just row after row of them. Why? Well, because over the centuries, believers have wanted to be buried right there, on that specific hill. The belief is that if Jesus is returning to the exact spot he left, those buried on the Mount of Olives will be the very first in line to be resurrected. It's a stunning, real-world representation of a 2,000-year-old waiting period. Now, try to put yourself in the shoes of those original disciples standing on that mountain right after Jesus left. They must have been experiencing massive déjà vu. I mean, the last time they walked down that mountain without Jesus, it was the night of his arrest, a night where they lost him to the authorities and fled in sheer absolute terror just to save their own lives.
So the crucial point here is this. They are in the exact same geographic location, facing the exact same scenario of losing their leader and walking back to the city alone. By all historical logic, they should have panicked all over again. They should have scattered right back to their old fishing boats in Galilee. But the narrative pivot here is profound. Instead of hiding in fear, their reaction this time was completely transformed. They didn't run away.
Instead, they navigated their extreme uncertainty by taking 3 incredibly accessible, deliberate steps. First, they returned to Jerusalem. Jesus had told them not to leave the city, so despite the real danger, they obeyed. Second, they gathered. They didn't isolate. They went to an upper room and huddled together. The remaining 11 disciples, along with the women, Mary, and Jesus' brothers. They formed a community. And third, they prayed. Actually, the specific Greek word used here, proskartoreo, it doesn't just mean a quick, casual prayer. It means they persisted. They stayed in that spot and relentlessly dedicated themselves to it. Now, to explain why they had to do this, consider a really beautiful agricultural metaphor. You might wonder, why didn't the promised Holy Spirit just arrive the very second Jesus left? Why the wait? Well, think of a farmer waiting for rain. A farmer doesn't just sit on the porch doing nothing. They have to plow the hard soil first. If the ground is rigid and unyielding, the sweet rain will just wash right off the surface and be totally wasted. The obedience, the gathering, and the praying, that was the disciples plowing the hard soil of their hearts so that when the spiritual rain finally fell, it could actually soak in. And this act of waiting pays off in a huge way at Pentecost. Think about it. The last time they were waiting in a room after losing Jesus, the doors were locked tight out of fear. At Pentecost, the doors are wide open, they are engaging with the public, they're out there speaking in different languages to a crowd gathered from all over the known world. They've gone from an isolated, fearful group to an open, totally dynamic movement. This explosive moment, however, wasn't some random ambush from the heavens. The ascension happened 40 days after the resurrection, right? And Pentecost happened on the 50th day. That means there was a 10-day gap. For 10 consecutive days, the disciples were in that room plowing the ground. The arrival of the Holy Spirit was God's direct response to 10 days of unified, persistent, active preparation.
So, how does a 2,000-year-old story resonate with us today? Well, there's a deeply empathetic and fascinating parallel here. Think about the disciples' liminal space, stuck in that upper room, caught in the in-between of Jesus leaving and the Spirit arriving. It's actually incredibly similar to the modern immigrant experience. When immigrants arrive in a new country, they are caught between two worlds. They aren't fully integrated into their new home, but they can't simply go back to their old one either. They are navigating profound uncertainty, often dealing with language barriers and isolation. And they have to rely intensely on a tight-knit community just to survive while they wait for a breakthrough.
Just like the disciples huddled in that upper room, a lot of modern immigrant churches began exactly the same way, right in someone's living room. Out of a desperate need for community, shared language, and shared hope, people gathered in small, uncertain spaces to pray together and support one another. Those living rooms literally became their altars. They were plowing the ground in their own uncertain in-between periods.
Which brings our narrative full circle, right back to the coal mines of Wales and Evan Roberts. I have built the altar and laid the wood in order, and I have prepared the offering. I have only to wait for the fire. The takeaway here is crystal clear. Whether you're looking at a historical revival, the early church at Pentecost, or a modern immigrant community, the pattern is identical. You absolutely cannot expect the fire, the breakthrough, the renewal, if you haven't done the hard work of building the altar first.
So, we're going to leave you with this final thought to ponder. We all find ourselves in waiting periods, right? Times of uncertainty where we feel stuck between where we were and where we want to be. The real question is, are you waiting periods passive, or are you actively plowing the hard soil, gathering your community, and preparing the ground for the sweet rain? Thanks for exploring this fascinating explainer with us, and we'll catch you next time.